Cool. Okay, guys, Mikey from Habit Nest here. I'm so excited to have Jon with us from the Smartcoin team.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mikey.
Absolutely. So this is our first episode on this entry into like mindfulness and Web3 and mental health and all of this. And I think the purpose that I want to create with this whole series is building up way better habits and routines that are going to be sustainable for us.
Mm.
I was telling Jon before this how, like, right now, guys, we're all so early and it's easy to do well. And there will come a point where things get way more saturated, whether it's months or years from now. There's going to be tons of people flying in. Like, we all know this is so clearly the future, right? And my goal with this is to help all of us, myself included, build daily routines, whether it's around our own wellness and just day-to-day life, and also around how we're investing, finding opportunities, when to buy, when to sell, like keeping all these in mind so that we're becoming like fucking gangsters moving into this time months and years from now. And like, we're going to dominate as this scales to like 100x of where it is now, this entire market.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really excited to dive into it. I think just in general, as like a starting point. So I've we had COVID come up what, a year and a half ago, and that already changed all of our daily routines and lifestyle.
Hmm.
And then throw on top of that, Web3 came in as this degenerate fireball that on top of that took us to a whole other place. So I want to start by just understanding where you're at. Like, what routines have been thrown out the window from those two avalanches? Like, what are you not doing now that used to serve your life really well?
Yeah. Well, I think starting from COVID and working from there to present day, I was kind of in the habit of going into an office and working with clients one on one. And when
Yeah.
COVID happened, I stopped paying for my office and really kind of made the call to go fully online. And I had already been day trading or really gap trading the crypto markets, but when COVID hit, I kind of took it as an easy way to justify starting to do day trading a little bit more full time. And so my intention always is, if there is chaos in the marketplace, that means that there's an opportunity. And so I'm always scanning the horizon for what that opportunity is. And what I saw with the rise of COVID was that a lot of people were out of work. They were spending more time on their screens, really kind of falling down the algorithmic rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people were finding crypto, and anybody that has any kind of addictive tendency, crypto is very sticky, right? Because it's like walking into a casino.
Yeah.
And I'm a former addict and alcoholic, and basically have all the process addictions. And so I really wanted to approach cryptocurrency from a state of mindfulness and witness and be very aware of what was happening in my nervous system as I was playing
Wow.
in the crypto casino. And when you're day trading, your tuition into becoming a good day trader is that I think you end up getting wrecked a couple of times and having some pretty painful losses. And so I was just very aware of the PTSD that was causing in the space, because when that happens multiple times, you can really form a skewed perspective of what's actually happening. And so my background is working at Google, and so I'm constantly trying to like who are the people that are building something really interesting, who are the people that are actually thinking about the future rather than just thinking about a moonshot. And so as I started to meet more and more high level people that were actually working in the space, I realized that this casino is kind of a bubble that's laid onto something that's much more fundamental, and has the potential for creating way more impact than I think most people give it credit for. And so while the casino 100x, 1000x your bags kind of lure is great
Yeah.
for drawing people in, I think that you and I both have this gut feeling that it needs to be more than that, or it's not going to be sustainable. And so I am constantly looking for where those opportunities live in the space. And by signing on as community liaison and manager for the Jade Protocol and Smartcoin projects, that kind of gave me, and that was completely, me being immersed and kind of speaking my truth into the world, kind of just brought that opportunity to me. And a lot of things aligned, and it was really a community coming together around an interesting game in the craze and wrapper of the crypto bull run. And I think that there's so many moving parts to that and so much energy that if you don't create space for yourself in it, you can get completely swept away like an undercurrent, pulling you out to sea.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can get into kind of what my day-to-day looks like and how I manage that amount of data input. But the context that I approach mindfulness, at least in more recent times, is I am involved in a community with over 40,000 people in it. My phone doesn't ever stop vibrating.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people understand that feeling because even if you're not actively involved in a community, if you have your trading view chart set and they're constantly sending you alerts, it can be really hard to be present with somebody, at dinner when you constantly want to pick up your phone and see what
Oh
Dogecoin's
yeah.
doing.
No, for sure. Especially when everything is immediately accessible. Like we're so fucked in terms of like you have to really plan out how you're gonna live, what boundaries you set. Notifications management is like a whole thing. Like all these things no one's talking about.
Yeah,
Um, so look, I'm curious to um, look, like one thing that really stood out to me in what you just said is that now day to day you're really involved in Smartcoin and you work as a community manager and liaison there. And it speaks to one, the speed that crypto moves, right? Because this happened just weeks ago.
correct.
And two, it also speaks to you putting yourself out there in a certain way to create that opportunity for yourself, right? So what did you do? Like you didn't know this was going to happen weeks ago, right?
No.
And you said you were speaking your truth about it, but like did that come from posting content continually? Did that come from like weave me through the story of how this got here?
Yeah, well, Smartcoin, just to give people some context, the reason that I was drawn into it is that they had used a kind of a memetic marketing, which is when you attach your brand to something that is popular in pop culture right now, so that it's easier for somebody to remember, and then you create kind of this self-perpetuating cycle where the community is building chatter about the meme that you've put forth, and then you're taking that feedback and making it a part of the marketing, and so it creates this conversation loop with your community. So I got involved with Smartcoin because they had presented a kind of crypto scavenger hunt. They called it the Squid Game of crypto, and it was a 10-phase crypto social experiment hidden in the wrapper of a high APR yield farm. So when I first joined Smartcoin as an investor, we were making 25,000% APR, insane yields every single day while we exhausted the first billion tokens in the token supply.
Yeah.
And then in each phase, we were exploring different theories in economics, and kind of being forced to work together as a community. And so where mindfulness came into play for me was that I have always tried to be as intensely present with whatever the most interesting thing in my life is. And so there was something about this game that just hit me on an intuitive gut level and said, this is where your attention needs to be. And so I dug in and I tried to be as helpful and valuable as I could to helping people understand the game that I saw within this that wasn't completely obvious. And so I started making video content and sharing clues and things that I was seeing on Twitter and doing a bunch of research to connect the dots. And in that process, ended up building some really interesting relationships with new people online.
Yeah.
And having a lot of conversations about how detrimental big emotions projected forward can be, because there's two ways to have big emotions. You can sit with those big emotions and process them, and that can actually bring deep clarity, or you can project them forward through some kind of panic or fear. I mean, this is what FOMO and FUD are. It's just big emotions being projected forward instead of us really allowing our nervous system to process that energy out. And so I started to have a lot of those conversations, and you know, there were some fumbles in the project that created a lot of FUD, and I maintained a cheerleader for the project, and you know, it put me in a unique position where the Smartcoin and Jade Protocol teams asked me if I wanted to come into the fold and be more officially involved with the project. And so now I have a back channel to the developers. They are still anonymous to me, but I'm able to convey things from them to the community and from the community back. And we're building this really interesting feedback engine and mechanism that ultimately centers around one of the Easter eggs in phase 10, which is something that we call the Fair Fork Foundation. And the Fair Fork Foundation is a way to take popular crypto projects, fork them, innovate and democratize them, and then take Smartcoin's tremendous seasoned marketing team and push it out to the masses. And so that's a long way of saying that anytime you're on a scavenger hunt, you're having a heightened awareness, right? Because you're training your brain to look for data points that it would normally just tune out. And the thing that I loved most about Smartcoin and how I got to this conversation right now,
Yeah.
was that by being super present with the clues and the information that we had, it did allow for the space for something interesting to manifest. And I really think that when you're intensely involved with your life and present with what's happening,
Yeah.
that is the ultimate outcome that always follows.
So here's my question to you, right? I think right now, every day, we're all being exposed to like what, minimum 10 projects a day from Twitter, YouTube, whatever, right? And on the surface, before digging in, you see Smartcoin, you see some stupid APR, you're like, this is ridiculous, right? So what led you to be able to vet it properly as a legit project in phase 1 before all this stuff was hashed out? What did you see that didn't make you be like, this is a scam, this is bullshit? And then past that, like, how did you enter?
Yeah. Well, I think with any trade, I always enter with a small position, and you know what I tell anybody that's wanting to get into crypto, I'm like, just buy $50 worth of Bitcoin, and you will immediately become way more interested in what's happening in that world, and your brain will start picking out data points that help you understand it. And
Yeah.
so, with any project, if I have an intuition that I follow my interest always. So to me, the signal that there's something for me somewhere is, this seems more interesting than other things. And so I just had that feeling, and I've learned to trust that feeling within myself after years of practicing following it. And so I followed that feeling into Smartcoin, and really invested a very small amount of money to just kind of
Yeah.
deepen my level of connection with the project and kind of understand what was happening, meet some of the people in the community.
Yeah.
And as I started to connect some of the dots, I started to kind of dollar cost into my position, which is almost always how I approach crypto projects, because I used to just, throw all the money on the craps table and or let's spin the roulette wheel and put all the money on black. I've gotten so wrecked doing leverage trading and going all in like that early on in my day trading career, that I really have trained myself to, one, look for confluence in the charts, in reality, in my nervous system. Like, there's a lot of data points within our body that need to line up with what we're seeing on the screen in order for it to be a true go. And so I'm just always looking for that confluence, and disciplined enough now, 2 years into day trading, where I can actually follow a system and a process instead of letting my emotions get away from me and always buying green candles and selling red.
Yeah. And look, I think it's really interesting that your marker of buying in was curiosity and interest, right? Because like, just on a fundamental level, if that's what drew you in, probably going to draw other people in. And like, where attention flows, especially in this space, money's going to flow right behind it.
That's right.
It's just interesting to hear that's what your marker was. It's like, well,
the other thing with the Smartcoin ecosystem is that I'm a marketer. My job at Google was field marketing. I have done marketing for over 20 years. I love marketing as a creative expression. And I hadn't seen anything in the crypto space that was so unique, creative, and innovative when it came to the marketing. And it's there are technical geniuses in this space that have zero clue about marketing. And to me, that was another thing that I was like, wow, this is different. And this is something that is going to get people's attention.
Yeah. Immediately, if I find a new project, I don't care how good it is. If I don't see a really well thought out plan for marketing, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. No one's going to hear about you. Right. It's such an important pillar. Today, it's more important than the actual fundamentals of the project.
Sure. The marketing and the ability to communicate the project to the right people and build momentum is key. But of course, there needs to be fundamentals underneath it as well. Because once it catches fire, it can't just be newspaper. There's got to be some logs there.
100%. I mean, for short term, you can get bursts from good marketing.
Yes.
But give anything time. Without fundamentals, you're done. The project's going to die.
Yeah. The other thing is people. I always look at the founders in a project, and what was right. What was interesting in this project is that the founders are anonymous and not doxed, and that was so counterintuitive to how I normally analyze projects that I decided that I would just go down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah, dude, you know why I'm laughing? I just pictured you at Thanksgiving explaining to your family what the fuck you're doing. Right. And you're like, listen, I don't really know who these guys are, and they're printing 5,000% APRs, but like, guys, it's a great project.
It's so hilarious to try to explain any aspect of crypto to normies, but especially the DeFi space.
And this project too, you're screwed, dude. Good luck.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun Thanksgiving, but it is something that I think that one thing that crypto has going for it, other than insane yields and absolute bananas innovation that could change everything, is that it's the first thing in a long time that I've seen positive optimism and passion for that isn't somebody having to throw rocks at something. So there's a ton of passion in our world right now. You see it on the news all the time, but crypto has such an interesting optimism to it,
Yeah.
at least in the people that I meet and commune with in the space.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me.
It is. And you see mini battles of like AVAX is better, ETH is better, Solana is better. Like, sure, those are there and they're like cute and fun. But I really, all of us feel like we're one family because we're trying to like get the world to realize, hey, the future's here. This is the next phase of the internet. Like, when are you going to realize?
Right. Well, and that level of tribalism is interesting. There's a great interview with Suzu, the CEO and CIO of Three Arrows Capital, and he's talking about how, you know, each network is very tribal, and their community almost forms a set of rules for engaging with that platform that almost becomes a kind of constitution. And the conversation that he was having is really cryptocurrencies and you know, layer one networks should really be looked at and valued almost the way that you would value a nation state, because the potency and the ability of the community to work well together and innovate without central leadership really has a lot to do with longevity of the platform.
Yeah. No, it's all really interesting. I'm so with you. Okay, you said something that made me curious. So you talk about being really grounded and really present when you make all your decisions, or trying to at least. So how have you, I feel like so many of us have been like, damn, if I did this just a little differently, I would have made tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever, like tons more money.
Yeah.
And it still plagues many of us, myself included. Like, it's just like we carry it with us. Like, fuck. Every time you see that project, like, fuck, that pisses me off, you know?
Right.
So I'm curious, in dealing with that aspect of FOMO, have you been able to come to peace with any of your difficult to swallow pills for this? And like, how did you do that, if you could?
Yeah. I've come to peace with all of them. And the way that I've done it is by treating it like trauma. So my definition of trauma is anytime an expectation isn't met. And you know, people kind of skew away from that word because it can feel like therapy or it can feel a little woo-woo, but our brain is connected into our central nervous system, and the more tapped into our bodies and the nervous system and those data inputs in our body we are, the more data points that we can see, our decision space gets bigger, and we think that we can think anything at any time, but most of us have a very finite view of what data is actually available to us in any moment. And for me, my entry point into mindfulness had nothing to do with peace and everything to do with optimization. I wanted to be at the top of my game and to be able to see what other people couldn't see, and to be able to train my nervous system into being visionary. And so I started to meditate multiple times a day, and for many years was meditating, you know, for hours on end. At this point, I have trained my nervous system and gotten over a lot of the limiting beliefs, where I usually, for 15 minutes in the morning before I turn my phone on, I'm allowing everything that happened in my dream state to kind of integrate into my body and my nervous system so that I can have that download available in my perception throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, usually for about 15, sometimes up to an hour, I will sit with all of the energy that was moving so fast throughout the day that I wasn't able to process that. And what that looks like in practice is getting into the body and reaching for the sensation, the most present sensation in the body, because it's really easy to get trapped in the mind. And you hear all the time, oh, I tried to meditate, but the thoughts just kept coming in and I couldn't stop thinking. For me, there's a deeper layer. The thoughts are a derivative layer of the nervous system energy that has gotten trapped. It's been freeze dried in the system because there wasn't enough space to process it out in the moment. And
Yeah.
so when we sit and reach for some of that discomfort in our body and sit with it until it kind of melts away, that will transmute itself back into creative potential. And then we can be at full optimized potential again.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that space to allow for one processing, which then breeds to creativity, is essential. And none of us are doing it
Yeah.
because your phone is always accessible. And like this, what you brought up is exactly what lights a fire in me to like, one, try to change in myself because I need to rewire all the things I'm doing, but
Sure.
create content around this too. Because when you're in constant FOMO mode of checking your phone, monitoring all the projects you bought into, looking for new opportunities, you're not allowing yourself to like process what the hell has happened in your day. One,
Yeah.
in your actual life, two, with the all the investing decisions you've made, and then three, being creative. No one's being creative. And like, this is the biggest open opportunity of creativity where you can clone a project someone has worked on for 6 months and add something to it and change the fucking world. Like it is so necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you for doing that. You're a gangster, dude. I love it.
Well, the content is needed and I appreciate you putting it out. And, you know, in the DeFi space, there's a reason that we call it degenerates. I mean, it is so easy to get into that mode where you just want to keep feeding the slot machine. And, you know, one of the if you can't buy into the woo woo or healing nature of meditation,
Yeah.
the reason that meditation is so profitable as a trader
Yeah.
is because there is such a tendency on the heels of a bad loss. You know, so I can remember a time when I was day trading Filecoin or something on leverage, some insane leverage,
Okay.
and got wrecked for like $19,000, and it just took me out. Literally, it was difficult to get up out of my chair for days, and I unfortunately was still in that gambler's mania.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up losing a lot more money trying to chase
Yeah.
quick pump and dumps in order to make that back so I wouldn't feel so bad anymore. All I wanted to do was not feel that feeling. And because of that, my decision space narrowed, and I could only see bad opportunities. But they weren't reading as bad opportunities. They were reading as, please get me out of this situation. And when I finally took the time, and I mean, it was like a 4 or 5 hour period of just really having to sit with that discomfort and how much it hurt and how stupid and embarrassed I felt, and really getting into those sensations where they were in my body, and letting that fully play itself out until I could look at the name of the coin and not feel triggered by it. And at that point, my vision opened back up. I could trade rationally again. And this is so important as day traders and playing in the crypto markets, that we have that kind of regulatory mastery over our nervous system.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think like you talked about too, a big proponent of what all of this grounding practices would bring you to is a place that you can now like scout out opportunities and have
Yeah.
an open mind for it too. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm curious, like, what are right now? How do you find new projects that call to you? And where are the places you look? Like, what are the things that come out to you?
Yeah. Well, right now I'm in so many Telegram chats and Twitter conversations every single day that projects are constantly being brought to me. And the biggest metric that I look for these days that wasn't what I used to look for is how vibrant is the community. When the official Twitter account for that coin sends out a tweet, how many people like and reshare that? to me, that's a really interesting metric that I don't think a lot of day traders are bringing into their practice. And of course, if you're just trading technical charts on a 15-minute timeline, that's going to be less important. But if you're swing trading or gap trading on a longer time frame, community is everything. It's going to determine whether that project is going to be around in 6 months. And I have moved into analyzing Twitter accounts and Telegram accounts to see how many members are there, how many followers, but more importantly, how actively engaged are those communities with the content, and how fervent are they about spreading that content. There's a big difference between somebody liking a post and retweeting a post. Retweeting says a lot more about the community.
So do you go in and qualitatively actually read the conversations that are happening in the Telegram channels and in the main channel?
I mean, these days, what I'll usually do is if something catches my eye. So again, like when we have a balanced nervous system, part of the advantage of that is that our gut feeling about things gets stronger. And so when I have that gut feeling about something, I'm like, there's something about that. Usually what I will do is throw $100 to $1,000 into the project blind, because that focuses me in a way where now I'm invested enough to really start to see what's happening in the project, really want to understand it. And so, you know, fortunately, I've had some success in my day trading, and so doing that is a practical strategy. When I was first starting out with $1,000, that wouldn't have been practical, and so I probably would have spent more time in the community than I do now, because at that point in my life, I had more time than money. And I think once I'm financially invested in something, there's something about the emotional tone that I have towards it where I can start to smell out, is this the right opportunity for me? And sometimes the opportunity was just to get in and out in a day. But other times there really is, I hate to be so ambiguous, but there really is a feeling that I get that says this is worth paying attention to. And that will be, I happened to join the Telegram when somebody happened to post one thing, and that thing really resonated with me, and it sent me down this rabbit hole of something else that really resonated with me. And so for me, trading early on and understanding a project is about kind of connecting dots. Like, how many things feel synchronous to me? And how much fun is it? Like, I'd like to have fun. And so if I go into a Telegram and everybody's being a fuddy-duddy, like that's not fun. And so to me, it's like, are there good people here? Because if I'm going to heavily invest in a project, that means I have to hang out with these people for a while. And so that's definitely something early on that I'm thinking about is, do I want to spend the next 6 months with these people? And then I'm always layering into my positions, so I don't ever go all in.
Even if
everything, except for Avalanche Network. That's the only thing I went all in on. So, sometimes I layer in bigger portions than others. But there is value, I think, into stair stepping into a position. One, because the market's so volatile that unless you're a brilliant day trader, which I'm not, you'll probably end up doing better layering into a position than trying to time it. But two, if I can slowly ease myself into a position, I can usually be more in control of my emotions. So like if I throw 100 grand into a position right away, it's too overwhelming for me. I don't have a trained enough nervous system to be able to ride that out rationally. But if I work my way up over time to that position, it's more manageable because I'm seeing more and more data points as I layer in.
So you talked about having fun in this too, and I think it's really I want to do that all the time, but when you buy into a project, medium, heavy, whatever, you're essentially making a decision every single day after you've entered it
Yep.
of, do I buy, do I sell, do I buy more, like, do I layer in more? Like, you really have to keep this on your mind every day. Like, so I think, one, I'm curious, how many projects are you into right now with a meaningful position?
5.
Five.
I've
So it's small.
I'm in probably 20 with smaller positions, but
Okay.
5 with positions that would hurt if they went south.
Okay. And then with those five, let's say, what are your daily processes of managing your positions in those?
Yeah. A lot of it is time management, right? Like you can go down the rabbit hole and you can research a project
Yeah.
24 hours a day and never feel like you have enough information about
Yeah.
it. And you can actually become addicted to information flow because every time you find a piece of information that confirms that you're in the right position, it gives you a tiny dopamine hit. And so you can get addicted to the crypto news cycle in that way. And so for me, I used to work for an ad agency that did a lot of the work for Jay Papasan, who wrote a book called The One Thing. And there's a chapter in that book all about time blocking, and it's all about instead of trying to manage every task that you have and constantly being engaged with 1,000 different things, block it out where you know that from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. that's when you do your crypto research. You know, for me, it's like the first 15 to 20 minutes of the day, no phones, moon mode doesn't come off until I've fully sat with myself and made sure that there wasn't something in my dreams that was calling out for my attention. Then usually first thing in the morning while I'm having coffee after that, I go through my Twitter messages. I see if anybody has pinged me anything in Telegram, and I am usually through various news sources checking up on, I mean, my Twitter feed is a pretty good source of information for my positions because I'm following a bunch of people who are also in those positions.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what I'm doing is scanning the news feed in the morning to see what's the FOMO level looking like. I will also usually look at Bitcoin dominance and the fear greed index, and those are some of the more macro confluence points that I'm looking at, especially if I'm in a more short term, a more short term trade.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, 3 of the 5 projects are DeFi projects, and so you don't. At least I don't manage them quite the way that I would manage other trades. Because projects like Ohm and Time and Jade Protocol, um,
You're generating.
even Smartcoin, like these projects are kind of have a context set on a longer time frame.
Yeah.
You know, the runways are over a year long, and so I find them to, even though they're larger positions, I find them to be much less stressful positions.
Yeah. Because you know you're going to be good if you
Yeah.
stay in for the most part.
Yeah.
So you talked about layering in also. Do you layer out? How do you manage
Yes.
that part?
Usually if something goes up more than 50%, I immediately take 10% off of my position and put it
Wow,
into powder, and I wait for the market to drop, and then I buy back into that position.
that's sick. Respect.
Um, that comes from missing a lot of opportunities to buy a heavy dip. And
Yeah.
so what I've learned is that even if that position ends up going up 150%, if I took 10% off and then there's a major pullback and I have money to put
Yeah.
in the bottom of that pullback, then usually I end up about even as if I'd stayed in the position.
Yeah. And
So that's big for me. If just as a stated rule, it doesn't matter what the project is. If it's over 50%, I take 10% off. If it's over 100%, I'll usually take another 10% off, sometimes more,
yeah.
because depending on what period of time that 100% gain has been,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's anything less than 90 days that happened, I always take 20-30% off because I'm expecting a drastic pullback.
Yeah. And you're not talking in one day it shoots up. You're talking over a couple days it shoots up.
If it shoots up 100% in a month, I'm expecting a pullback.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. I'm with you. And as you were saying this, I'm just thinking like you have the ability to do this because you're in such a one small number of projects, and two, they're projects that you love. And like when that happens, whether it goes up or down, you kind of feel gifted. Because if it goes up, you're probably in 60 plus of your position, 60 plus % of your position. And if it goes down, you're like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna make some free coins and like buy back in.
Yeah, my biggest positions right now, I hardly even check the price anymore because I'm so bought in on the long-term mission. You know, it's incredibly satisfying to, I mean, I started layering into Avalanche at $40, and so the last month in rise of Avalanche has been incredibly satisfying. And so when you're a trader, it makes you feel like you're a genius, right? But really you're not. Like everything is going up. but Avalanche is having its moment in the sun right now where a lot of other things already have.
Yeah.
And it's that was one of the big draws for Smartcoin for me, was that it was built on the Avalanche network, and I love the Avalanche network. And I was so excited. I was so excited when Daniele put time on Avalanche, and I was so excited when Smartcoin made their home base on Avalanche, because I think it is going to be incredibly difficult for a good project built on Avalanche to fail.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about kind of the Squid Game memetics of Smartcoin is that, you know, some of the clues that they're putting out in the Smartcoin game now are about Jade Protocol, and how Jade Protocol is this Trojan horse to bring people from the Binance Smart Chain into the Avalanche network.
Yeah.
And as a AVAX fanboy, it's satisfying to be in community with so many people that are that believe the same thing about that network.
Yeah. Amazing, brother. Okay, so wrapping things up, I'm curious, one, do you have any thoughts or advice for people as they go on their investing journeys on the investing side of things?
Yeah. The best advice that I could give based on my own personal trading experience is that anytime you get wrecked or have a hit, or anytime something that you've been looking at just starts to moonshot, you got to set a timer for at least 5 minutes before you make your play. Because if you are trying to enter a position and you didn't have that entry point planned out, it's going to end up biting you. Maybe 1 in 10 times, maybe 3 in 10 times, you hit the position properly and you feel like a genius for doing it, but that was gambling. That wasn't trading. And so for me, anytime I feel that big feeling of here we go, we're going to the moon, or ah, I mean, when something's dropping drastically, I used to always knee jerk out of my position. And of course, something can drop 40% in 15 minutes in crypto, and then in the next 15 minutes rebound. Yeah. And so I used to get stopped out of my positions at the bottom of the position and not allow the market to correct, and just get absolutely destroyed and feel like such an idiot. And so what I started doing was, anytime I felt like I needed to exit a position that wasn't a planned exit, or anytime I felt like I needed to get into a position that wasn't a planned entry, I set a timer for at least 5 minutes, and I try to make it 10 minutes. And I just sit with all of the energy and adrenaline that's pumping with me and try to let that balance. And then usually I can make a better, more informed decision after that.
I love it. And building on that, as someone who prioritizes mindfulness, groundedness, like mental mindset so much, do you have any thoughts or advice on people in Web3 for building better habits related to those?
I think for me, mindfulness is about building space for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And what happens when we've got ding pings and screens in our face all the time is that we don't allow that space. And so the concept of deep work where you're putting your phone in moon mode and giving yourself 2 to 4 hours at least in your day that are completely uninterrupted, no emails, no text messages, no telegram, no social media. You're just giving yourself the space to really get into your creative ingenuity. And the people that I think are doing the most interesting things in the space have a very solid deep work practice.
Wow. That's a huge statement. It goes for all creators and investors and just people in general.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. This was bomb. I loved it. What an amazing first interview here. And yeah, looking forward to putting this out.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. And I'll just say that if you are a mindful degenerate and you're interested in some of the projects that are interesting to me, I would definitely encourage you to check out smartcoin.farm, which is where the Smartcoin 10-phase game and ecosystem is being built. And Jade Protocol, which is a brand new Ohm fork on the Binance Smart Chain with some interesting innovations and the low transaction fees on Binance Smart Chain make it a much more profitable, higher APY fork of Ohm. So check out jadeprotocol.io and feel free to reach me on Twitter. At Twitter, I'm always on there and always willing to engage with communities. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on and would love to come back anytime it makes sense.
And John, real quick, just to push Jade Protocol more, what's the APY right now?
I don't, it's something like 4 million or something. I mean,
Yeah,
it's an insane APY.
yeah.
Right now, I think the bond discounts are like 40%. So
I
if
thought it was
you,
a bug.
yeah, right. If you're bonding Jade Protocol right now at a 30 to 40% discount, and then you're going into the protocol 1 to 3 times a day. So the protocol rebases every 8 hours. So and your bond vests into Jade linearly. So every 8 hours you can go in there and a little bit of your Jade from the bond will be made available. You can claim that and then go and stake it and really rack up the amount of rewards that you're earning. And we're going to be coming out with some calculators to be able to calculate profit. But we're talking about being able to put $1,000 into something and assuming price level stays steady or grows and the protocol continues to remain stable, $1,000 can turn into 1.5 million or something if this magic internet math works out the way that everybody thinks it will. So if you have questions, reach out. Happy to help anybody that's interested in Jade Protocol or Smartcoin. And if you just are having a hard time in the markets and dealing with some big feelings, would be more than willing to walk you through some of the things that have been valuable for me.
Amazing. I'm so excited. I'm personally invested in Jade Protocol and Smarter Coin. Small, but we're gonna increase over time. I really like what you guys are doing, and I'm so appreciative of this, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Awesome.